I told you I wasn't going to be happy if Indiana was disrespected again. And they have been disrespected once more. And I'll tell you why it matters.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with this, the greatest sport on planet Earth, flawed though it may be. This episode brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Can anyone catch Boise State for the Group of 5 spot? Maybe. Couple of teams to just keep an eye on, keep them on the back burner, and I'll make my picks for this week in the Big Ten. But I want to start with Indiana because yesterday I led with Indiana. Here I am today again, starting with the Hoosiers, and this just, I think, pretty disastrous 12-team playoff rankings reveal. The first one ever, and it was a mess. It was a complete and total mess because it was almost a carbon copy of the AP poll. They just flipped Georgia and Ohio State and said, oh, look, we changed something. Like, no, you copied that guy's dish over there, competition chef. You just said you put in snap peas instead of green beans and said it's the different plate. Like, no, it's the exact same plate of food. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. The difference between snap peas and green beans is technically there, but it's pretty minimal. So Indiana stays at number 8, just where they are in the AP poll, which is absurd. It's completely absurd. The reason that this does in fact matter, because I already know what the comments are going to be. Well, Indiana will have a chance to prove it. Their strength of schedule isn't any good because Penn State has played a great schedule outside of the one good team they played, Ohio State, where they lost and they were outplayed by more than 7 points, which is how many they lost by anyway, but that's neither here nor there. Indiana, they'll have the opportunity. It'll all work itself out. What I'm trying to highlight here is that the people making these decisions are making these particular selections based on inconsistent selection points. They're saying record matters here, but not over here. Resume matters here, but not over there. There's a very subjective feel to it. That's always been the case in college football. And so right now, in the initial 12-team reveal, all right, it's not incredibly consequential, but it is telling about what can arrive down the line. Because these same people who put together these rankings are going to put together the final 12-team college football playoff in a few weeks' time, post-conference championship weekend, and maybe post-Army-Navy game as well, depending on how things shake out. More on that later in the show. And so I think it is worth bringing up more than once, maybe even every day on this particular show, to point out, hey, these rankings don't have a lot of sense in several areas because I see you rewarding what you think a team will be over here versus what a team has done over there. Indiana has a more impressive resume than Penn State. That's not even arguable at this point because Penn State played a really good team. They played them at home and they were outplayed. They lost. Indiana's beaten everyone by 14 or more points. Tell me, do you think if Penn State played a schedule the caliber of Indiana's, they would have the 33-point average margin of victory that the Hoosiers have rattled off so far? No, I do not think so. So while this particular set of rankings might not be the most consequential of all time, at some point it is going to be consequential. And I don't want you to be surprised when the people making this decision make another one that make you go, wait a minute, why'd you do this, that, and the other thing? Well, yeah, that's the problem that I have here. So hopefully they get more logical as the weeks go on. But Indiana is the most disrespected team in these rankings. They're ranked number 8. They are behind Miami. They're behind Texas, who's number 4. They are behind Penn State, who's number 6. They're behind Tennessee, who's number 7. Tennessee has a road loss to an unranked team, but they play in the SEC. Penn State plays in the same conference as Indiana and hasn't played an incredibly tough schedule outside, of course, of Ohio State. I mean, Bowling Green pushed them at home, and everybody gets a one-off, which I'm totally here for. I'm just saying, in the short term, you should be rewarding the team that has the more impressive resume. That answers absolutely Indiana. I think Indiana's a better football team than Penn State anyway. I wouldn't pick them to beat the Hoosiers on a neutral field in Bloomington, or heck, maybe not even in Happy Valley. And then they flipped Ohio State and Georgia. The AP polls got Georgia at 2 and Ohio State 3. They've got it the other way around in the playoff rankings. I don't have a huge objection there. Both teams have a loss. I think Ohio State has a higher quality loss than Georgia does. But is it a bad loss per se? I don't know. We'll see how Bama LSU plays out later this week. But a couple of other things that I noticed, and I just wanted to point this out. Can you tell me the big difference between Miami's schedule and Indiana's schedule? Can you show me the big difference that Miami's got a road victory at Florida? Okay, yeah. I mean, that continues to look more impressive as Florida plays better football. The Gators might not end up being a bowl team this year, but if you want to add context to that game, okay, that's probably the most impressive win Miami's had so far. But they are skating by teams like Cal and Virginia Tech and Louisville, who's solid, respectable, but it hasn't been easy. Everything's been easy for Indiana. So I'm not really clear as to how Miami is all the way up at number 4 and Indiana is all the way back at number 8. I don't know what the logic is there. I cannot even begin to understand it. BYU is at number 9. That feels more like a power ranking than a reward based on the resume. Kansas State's a ranked team. BYU beat them 38-9. 38-9. 38. Are you going to reward those particular scores? Apparently not. Apparently not. Bama's at number 11, by the way. Texas A&M and SMU, not in that order, it's SMU then Texas A&M, are the teams that are on the outside looking in right here. The Big Ten and SEC dominate the 12-team rankings so far, and that's to be expected. As I talked about on yesterday's show, there's a scenario where the SEC can get 5 teams into the college football playoff because, wait for it, just wait for it right here. Let me blow your mind with this particular possibility. It's one of several, but it's a realistic one for how the SEC gets 5 teams into the playoff. Georgia does not lose a game the rest of the season. They go to the conference championship, and they lose to a 1-loss Texas team, let's say. Ole Miss could get in at 9-3. Because if one of Ole Miss's losses is to, an SEC champion in Georgia, is that really going to be held against them? If Alabama gets in the playoff at 10-2 and it's a competitive game this weekend in Baton Rouge, how much do you think the playoff committee is really going to hold that loss against LSU? Because someone between LSU and Bama, since we don't play ties, since this isn't European soccer, this is America last time I checked, and we're playing American football, no ties, please and thank you. LSU and Bama are both, one of them's going to have 3 losses after this weekend. They're going to be ranked ahead of a lot of 2-loss teams. A lot of 2-loss teams. Brand power can matter. Who's got a stronger brand than Alabama? Who's got a stronger brand, arguably, than the SEC? So you could put in the 2 teams that get to the SEC championship game. You could put in Alabama, who's a 2-loss team. Tennessee could be a 2-loss team, per se, if Texas were to go to the SEC championship game. And then they'd only have to put in one 9-3 SEC team. Not out of the realm of possibility. Not out of the realm of possibility at all. There are a million other scenarios, but that's just one. So I think that this playoff that everybody really wanted to provide access to more people and everyone, well, guess what? It's going to be dominated by the Big Ten and the SEC. Get used to it. And it's very, very clear who the playoff committee likes and who they don't like. And they don't like Indiana yet. It makes me an Indiana fan more and more by the week. So does Curt Cignetti, but so too do situations like this. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. If you listened to yesterday's show, thank you so much for doing that. You might be an everydayer out there, and I appreciate you. Today's first segment is going to sound very similar to yesterday's first segment. And one point that I want to raise that I brought up in yesterday's show is, well, how much does the AP poll really matter? And I said, well, the people that are voting on the AP poll think very similarly to the people that make the college football playoff rankings. Here we are. One change in the top 12, swapping 2 and 3. That's it. That's all that happened. But there's going to be a group of 5 team that gets into the college football playoff. And if it's Boise State, I don't know that anyone will be overly upset because they're familiar with Boise State as a brand and Ashton Genty's really good. But what if it isn't the Broncos? Then you're going to have people questioning the format of this particular playoff. Who can challenge the Broncos? That's coming up next. Guys, ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? It's time you stop worrying about your performance and get Hims so you can be at your best when you want to be. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits, and you can start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. That's hims.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options, hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. hims.com/lockedon. That's the place to go. And then check out our friends at FanDuel, because they are America's #1 sportsbook, where you can tackle the NFL action. You can bet on college football. You can bet on teams to make the playoff. You can bet on teams to win the conference championship game. You can bet on games upcoming this very weekend, and you've been able to do that every week throughout the year. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL too, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get 150 in bonus bets. 150 in bonus bets. How about that? If you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Good day for Boise State. Washington State, number 21 in the college football playoff rankings. Oregon, number 1. Those two teams are Boise State's best win and maybe the best individual loss in all of college football. Remember, though Oregon is playing much better now than they were way back then, there is some legitimate merit to the narrative of, hey, Ohio State went to Autzen Stadium, lost by 1 point. Boise State went to Autzen Stadium, lost by 3 points. Do I think Oregon could beat Boise State at home by more than 3 points if they played today? I do. I do 100%. Would they beat them by 20 to 30? No, I don't think so. Boise State's playing good football, and Ashton Genty's really good, but Maddox Madsen has come along as well. The passing game, I think, has really taken strides from the early part of the season to where they can play some solid complementary football. No one is going to touch them in the Mountain West. Right? Right? I mean, crazy things have never happened in November before. I mean, when have we ever in a college football season seen upsets take place that no one sees coming? Like that never happens in this sport. So Boise State, you're completely and solidly fine. I'm not picking them to lose any of their games right now, but you got to watch out for Colorado State, because that's a team that can meet Boise in the Mountain West Championship game. And you have to watch out for UNLV, who Boise State beat earlier this year on the road, but is still, I think, a really good football team. So the question becomes, with the Broncos ranked 12th in the playoff rankings, and as I talked about earlier this week on the show, could Boise State become a team that is getting a bye in the first round? Yeah, entirely possible. What if BYU loses once and then doesn't win the Big 12 championship game and they're an at-large playoff team at 11-2? What if that happens? Where is the Big 12 champion going to be ranked? Are they going to catapult Boise State? I don't know. I can't guarantee that. What if Miami doesn't win the ACC? Then you'd have a chaos scenario in which they wouldn't, the highest ranked conference champions would probably include Boise State and they could get a bye. But the question becomes, in the most realistic terms, who pushes the Broncos, if anyone? So the easy answer is Army. Because Army is 8-0. They are ranked number 25 in the country. They're in the American Conference, so they will have the opportunity to play for a conference championship game. And if they go undefeated, they'd have the undefeated argument. And last year, if you'd had a 12-team playoff, Liberty, because they were undefeated in a conference worse than the American, Conference USA, they got in over the American Conference champion SMU to the New Year's Six Bowl game. They got blown out by Oregon, but still they got in because they were 13-0. What would the committee do? Can Army really catapult themselves however many spots up they would need to go? Could you have a wild, crazy world? Just ponder this, where a Big 12 or ACC champion is ranked below Army? Probably not. Probably not. I'm just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. I don't think that noodle is quite done in the boiling pot of water. I think that falls off the wall there. But I think that for Army, their ability to be the highest ranked G5 team is incredibly real. I don't think Boise State loses a regular season game. But remember, they have to win the Mountain West. Would Boise State get in as an at-large with a second loss and a non-conference championship season? I don't think so. I think the committee would leave them out. And if that were to take place, you'd have Army as a threat. Tulane could be a threat, who should have beaten Kansas State earlier this year but did not at home. They've got 2 losses, but they're 5-0 in American Conference play. They still have to play Memphis. They still have to play Navy, which are a couple of quality wins in the American to pick up. Watch to see if Tulane and John Sumrall, the new hire this offseason, can continue to keep things rolling. They've been playing much, much better football over the last couple of weeks. Memphis is out of the running. They've got 2 losses right now. I don't think they could do it, but they've got 2 losses in conference play. I mean, Tulane, though, 5-0 against American teams. How about UNLV? How about UNLV? There's a world in which they emerge in the Mountain West Championship game. And let me tell you, if they do that with a couple of Power 4 wins, they should have beaten Syracuse. They did beat Kansas. They did beat Illinois. Like, UNLV is not out of the playoff hunt. And for those who love the expanded playoff, and I understand there are a lot of benefits to it. Houston, not Illinois. Sorry. Houston. I thought I misspoke, and I was like, I don't think that was Illinois. No, it's Houston all the way back in week 1, who's playing much better football, by the way. But right now, UNLV has got wins against Kansas, against Houston, a close loss to Syracuse. They've beaten Fresno State. They lost to Boise State by 5. If they were to beat the Broncos in the Mountain West Championship game, they could absolutely, if they haven't lost between now and then, they'd be a 2-loss team. And they would have avenged their 1 loss. That's a compelling resume, with your other loss being to an ACC team that'll probably make a bowl game in Syracuse this year, and to lose by 3 points. Yeah, I can see a world where UNLV is able to reemerge and get themselves as the highest ranked Group of 5 conference champion. Is it likely? No, but I mean, is it completely ridiculous? Also, no. They need Colorado State to lose. But UNLV goes at Hawaii, hosts San Diego State, at San Jose State, hosts Nevada. They're going to be favored in every single one of those football games. So if you win those 4, you're 10-2, and a chance to avenge your loss. And historically, the College Football Playoff Committee has looked very favorably on teams that lose to someone in the regular season and then come back and beat them in the conference championship game and say, that kind of cancels it out right there. So they might look at UNLV as a 1-loss team, but then, with UNLV currently unranked, would they surpass Army? Would they fly by? If Army were to win the American, or Tulane, UNLV would be a 2-loss. Tulane would be a 2-loss. UNLV would have avenged their loss. Tulane wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that, but they wouldn't have lost a game in American Conference play. That's a realistic chaos scenario if Boise State does not win the Mountain West Championship game, which I think they absolutely have to do in order to make the college football playoff. I don't think they'll get in as an at-large because they've got the loss to Oregon. They would have another loss probably to UNLV or Colorado State or someone in the conference title game. And I just don't see them as a 2-loss team from the Group of 5 ranks getting in over 2-loss SEC, 2-loss Big 12 even, 3-loss SEC, or 2-loss Big 10. I think that hurdle's too hard to get over. Let me throw another one at you, and this is not going to be on anybody's radar right now. Louisiana in the Sun Belt is a 7-1 football team. Louisiana, they got to win the rest of their games, no doubt about it. But Louisiana is a team that if they keep winning games, can certainly emerge. They're 4-0 in the Sun Belt right now. They've got Arkansas State this week. Not a lot of people are going to be watching that. Louisiana is about a 17-point favorite. Then they play 2 more home games against South Alabama and Troy before they play Louisiana Monroe on rivalry week. If they keep winning and are victorious in the Sun Belt, and Boise State doesn't win the Mountain West, and Army doesn't win the American, and maybe it's Colorado State winning the Mountain West, or UNLV with 3 losses winning the Mountain West or something like that, watch out for Louisiana. So they're not on anybody's radar at the moment, but just know that it is entirely possible for them to emerge. I don't know that there are any other serious G5 playoff contenders that I feel confident saying, yeah, they can make a run, they can make a push. Memphis was in the running for that despite their loss to Navy earlier this season, but they lost to UTSA last week. And UTSA with Jeff Traylor, who was a one-time candidate potentially for the Texas A&M job, I think the Aggies are pretty happy with Mike Elko as their head coach. He's doing a phenomenal job, even though they lost last week. Losing to UTSA, I think, knocks Memphis out of it. James Madison, that was a pick earlier this year that you could have said, hey, What if they go unbeaten again? They're really good. They lost this guy named Curt Cignetti as their head coach. They made a good hire, but they've got 2 losses. I don't think they can get out of the Sun Belt and into the college football playoff, but Louisiana, just wait for it. And for all the playoff expansionists out there, the hardcore ones that love the format and such, just wait until a 10-2 Colorado or a 9-3 Ole Miss doesn't get into the playoff, but 12-1 Louisiana does. That's going to ruffle some feathers. It's not likely. It's not likely, but it's not impossible. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. As always, I have picks in the Big Ten this week. 2 teams that are big underdogs are both capable of keeping it close and throwing a wrench into things in these playoff discussions, and that's coming up next. First, this episode brought to you by ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember, to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. I have personal experience with this particular product. Made it my first drink, went out, had several drinks, felt great during, felt great after, felt great the next day. 100% guarantee here. Or they'll refund your money for any reason if you are unsatisfied. So go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LockedOnCollege at checkout. That is the code. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege. Use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. And this episode brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, which has this feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Not harder, makes it easier. Of course, Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And curation makes it easier to save more on, well, everything. Sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you're looking for, they've got it. And you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know what to expect. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LockedOnCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LockedOnCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Oh yes, it is game time. Michigan's passing game. It's not good. It's not good, but it's better than it used to be, at the very least. So if you're looking for a reason to say Michigan can hang around with Indiana this week, the reason, this is a crazy conversation to have when you consider what these teams were expected to be before the season. Now, I didn't think Michigan was going to be a Big Ten title contender, but I thought they'd be an 8-4, 9-3 football team. They've got 4 losses already, and they're probably picking up a 5th this week against Indiana because the Hoosiers are a wagon. So Davis Warren last week against Oregon, a pass defense that has been really good this season. They have not, outside of Will Howard of Ohio State, allowed a 200-yard passer this season. Davis Warren didn't hit that mark. But you go look at some of the throws he made, he didn't have those in his bag earlier this season. So he's a guy who I think is looking a lot more comfortable at the quarterback position for Michigan. Is he going to be the starter next year? Well, no, of course not. I don't even know if he could come back. I don't think it would matter. They're going to go to the transfer portal and find somebody, as they should. But for Michigan right here, right now, pulling the upset this week in Bloomington is not as crazy as it was 3 weeks ago. Because the strides in the passing game, it doesn't have to be elite. But if Colston Loveland is healthy, he's got a go-to target. They worked in a couple nice screen passes against the Ducks. Expect to see that again here against the Hoosiers. I just wonder if it was an aberration, if he just had a great week, or seriously, you just need to go watch the highlights. The throws he makes were, wait, he's retreating? He's throwing, that guy's blanketed in coverage. That's a tight window throw. That's a 15-yard dig on 3rd and 12. Yeah, he made a lot of big-time throws. So if Michigan finds a way to run the football game against an Indiana defense that is a lot better than you think, they can absolutely hang around with the Hoosiers. I do struggle picking that as my official score prediction because Indiana has won 8 straight games against the spread. 8 straight. And I mean, you got to ride the wave until it goes the other way, right? So I think Michigan can make this more uncomfortable than those looking at this game at a glance would probably think. I'll take Indiana to win. I'll take them to cover. I don't think it's a big cover, though, which is essentially like not covering for Indiana with how they've been playing over the last 2 months. I'll take Indiana 34, Michigan 17. But it's closer than that in the first half. Hoosiers get the win and I think stay unbeaten. And the College Football Playoff Committee will do, drumroll please, absolutely positively nothing. Here's another one. Washington at Penn State. Washington is the best bad football team that is starting to realize it's kind of a good football team. So the Huskies beat USC last week. I didn't think they would, but the defense stood tall. And this is a Penn State team that still has all of their season's goals in front of them. I never had expectations for them to win the Big Ten. I thought that'd be Oregon, Ohio State. They're on that collision course unless Indiana is able to provide a serious roadblock for the Buckeyes. But for Penn State, going 11-1, yeah, that gets you in the playoff. Going 10-2 probably gets you in the playoff. Probably, not guaranteed, but probably gets you into the college football playoff. This is a Washington team that is good right until they aren't a lot of the time. But if they play more like they did against USC last week, they could go into Happy Valley and pull the upset here. And Penn State fans don't want to see that. Not in a whiteout game, not the week after losing again in gut-wrenching fashion to Ohio State, where the questions about James Franklin are once again being asked. Is he ever going to stop being this version of the Nittany Lions football program? And one day I think he could. The answer is just he's not going to do that right now. So Washington favored. That would be pretty wild. Penn State's favored by 13 points. I think that's too many. I think Washington keeps this close. Home field advantage, though, does cause Washington to get a little out of sorts, maybe a turnover or two. Abdul Carter can get going in this game against that Washington offensive line. I'll take Penn State 27, Washington 20. They win the football game and Penn State gets a bit of a bounce back. How about the number one team in the country, Oregon? I don't know if Maryland could put up a fight here. I mean, they could, but not if Oregon comes out and plays the way they're capable of. This is just another one of those games that'll look like when Oregon played Illinois, when Oregon played Purdue, where you're going to watch the first half and go, all right, game's over. Then Oregon will take their foot off the gas in the third quarter, maybe score a touchdown in the fourth. But I think Oregon wins this game big, and I mean big. Their defense played well enough last week against Michigan, but didn't play its best. I think they get a little bit of a bounce back spot here. I will go 38-7 Oregon over Maryland. Purdue and Ohio State. Speaking of big point spreads, what do you think the point spread is on the big noon kickoff game this week? I mean, Minnesota-Rutgers is an objectively more exciting game because Minnesota's actually playing pretty good football right now. They just are. Or Michigan-Indiana should be big noon kickoff, but it's on CBS. Yeah, it's all a mess out there. But Ohio State is going to throttle Purdue. I have no inclination to feel good about Purdue. 38 points is a lot. Like Ohio State has not been playing great. Purdue has lost by the following point totals since winning their first game against Indiana State. They lost by 59. They lost by 17. That was to an Oregon State team that's currently 4-4 and in the Mountain West-ish Pac-2 conference. 28-10 against Nebraska. 52-6. 50-49 against Illinois. They had a big lead and then they faced a big deficit. They almost came back and won. 35-0, 26-20. That last game was against Northwestern. So Oregon beat this team 35-0. That was in West Lafayette. This game is in Columbus. I'll take Ohio State. I don't know that Ohio State's got the juice to cover 38. So give me 45-10. I'll take Purdue to cover that spread there against the Buckeyes because I don't know. That's more that says more about Ohio State than it does against Purdue. I don't have really a lot of confidence in Purdue in this game. I don't know if they can get 10 points. I'm gonna revise that down. I'm still taking Purdue to cover. I think they get a field goal, but not a touchdown. I think they go for it on 4th and goal. They don't get it. Give me Ohio State 38, Purdue 3, and the cover with that lone field goal. Minnesota-Rutgers. Interesting game. Did you know that PJ Fleck's team is 6-3, bowl eligible after being bowl eligible at 5-7 last year? They're 4-2 in the Big Ten. Minnesota's playing some pretty solid football. Max Brosmer, solid at quarterback. I like Darius Taylor at running back a lot for this Golden Gophers team. I'm taking the upset. I am taking the upset at home. I think the boat loses one of its oars here, and Rutgers, just 1-4 in Big Ten play, gets back over 500 on the season. They win a slugfest 27-24. And last but certainly not least, Friday night, Iowa goes to UCLA. Speaking of teams playing better football, UCLA, I'm going to take them to cover. Not win outright, but a close one. Iowa wins, UCLA covers. Iowa gets their 7th win of the season for Kirk Ferentz and company. low-scoring football game. There aren't going to be a lot of points here. UCLA's defense has actually got some guys on it. Brian Addison, back end of that defense, pretty darn good football player. A couple other guys you watch, you go, yeah, that's pretty good. We'll see how many wins Deshaun Foster and company can get by the end of the season, but I'm going with Iowa to win. I don't think they cover that 5.5. Watch this. 17-14, boom, an Iowa Classic. Game, set, match. That's how the Big Ten is going to play out. Every game guaranteed to be 100% accurate with those score predictions. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.